And so that story, I think if anyone is interested, I can share in detail, but I think I'm just going to the bullet points right now. And after becoming a monk, I studied Pali language, Buddhism, and got into the University of Peradeniya. And I finished my undergraduate studies majoring in Pali language. And then I wanted to study how emotions work. So I went to Europe. This time it was a program in Faculty of Cognitive Science in University of Trento, Italy. So I studied a little bit of mindfulness, emotional regulation, and I did research there as a master's student. And then went back to Sri Lanka. I started teaching in the university, and after that, I was accepted to a master's program at Harvard Divinity School, which was a one-year program, but I ended up staying there for 3 years doing a full master's degree. And then um, after that, I did chaplaincy in Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. This was a residency. Having done that, I came here to Great Lakes Buddhist Vihara. So currently, I'm just finishing my doctoral thesis while staying here. So when the invitation to come to do a program, I was not quite happy, to be honest, because doing other things while being a student has always been the way I have spent my life. But it's, when you are a student, you can only be a student. When you are a monk, you have to only be a monk. Otherwise, you are going to suffer. So somehow I found myself saying yes to Bante Siri because this was, I think, the first time he invited me to teach. So I'm like, I shouldn't say no and give my reasons. So here I am, and I hope you are all having a great rest of a great evening right now. And so good evening, all of you. Let's start. I'm going to talk about 10 wholesome actions and 10 unwholesome actions. In doing this, I have prepared some slides because this is the computer that we use for our virtual programs, which doesn't have uh, PowerPoint, not my personal computer. Um, I see questions coming. I think I can respond to them after the lecture. So I have the PowerPoint presentation in PDF format, which will show everything as I share the screen. And I think this is organized around just the slides taken from various sources, particularly Buddhist teachings. And also special attention went to one of the articles I found that was useful from Peter Harvey, a Buddhist scholar from England. So I have taken snaps from his article, highlighted some of it. There are less pictures, and if there is any technical jargon, feel free to raise your hand, which is a Zoom function, and you can stop me there, push the button to stop and ask questions. So I will be happy to respond before it gets further complicated. And in the middle of this presentation, I will have a case that makes you think about um, what is wholesome and what is unwholesome, and the causes leading to unwholesome actions, which is this case is a recent case that made news in the United States. And towards the end, there will be a memorization activity, which you don't have to memorize today, but I think this will be a take-home activity. If you haven't memorized that particular thing, the verse that I'm going to show you, I strongly recommend you to memorize it. So that is the summary, what to expect. So without further delay, I'm going to open the slides. Um, Hopefully, this will give you a basic idea about the 10 unwholesome and the 10 wholesome. Well, all these pieces and bits are woven together from what other monks will be teaching, and you will hear these things again and again. So the word wholesome um, I think, will be a useful word to remember throughout the course of your Buddhism introduction to Buddhism course. So this is basically an introduction, not really an in-depth study. We will see how far we can go, and we'll open for discussion. So the 10 unwholesome actions are called dasa akusala. So the 10 wholesome actions are called dasa kusala. So kusala is also my name. So that says the meaning of my name, something wholesome. So my friend monks call me wholesome sometimes. Um, it has other meanings. The term kusala is very generic. It has many other meanings. Um, Kusala could mean good, kusala could mean skilled. So these are called skillful actions, good deeds, kusala kriya, kusala karma. All these are pointing towards the same thing. In Buddhism, it's all about numbers. Sometimes you have 3 of these, 10 of these, 5 of these. So expect me to show you 10 of these. So dasa means 10, kusala means unwholesome. So kusala means wholesome, moral, or good. Dasa kusala karma means 10 wholesome actions. Dasa kusala karma is 10 unwholesome actions. I'll be happy to share the slides with you, so you don't have to really worry about taking notes unless it really matters to you. So this is a summary of kusala and akusala karma. Deed. So the deed, this is organized around akusala, kusala, and the effects of akusala karma. And these are performed by action and by your word, which is your mouth, and through your thoughts. So sometimes it's a little bit hard for people to understand that the things that we do mentally are also unwholesome actions. This is one of the main teachings taught in Buddhism, that things you think also convert into actions. Sometimes you may not act upon them, but it has an effect on you and it has an effect on others. Therefore, we are taught to be alert and mindful on what you think, what you feed your mind, and how you feel about things. Sometimes you attract what you think about. This is like the law of attraction. So you can take two sides in your life, negative side or positive side. When you are positive, you have a positive outlook about things and you only see positive things. It's like when you have peace in your mind, you only see peaceful things. When you have anger in your mind, you only see things that make you more angry. So this is like what is your present, what becomes your present experience becomes your um, future experience or the outer experience as well. So let's look at this chart closely. On the deed part, you have the list. You have 10 listed. The first akusala is killing, next one is stealing, and then unchastity, which is sexual misconduct. And then you have lying, you have slandering, you have harsh speech, you have frivolous talk, which is, well, we'll come back to it. And you have, in your thoughts, you have abhijja, covetousness, you have ill will, anger, and you have false view. So these are the 10 10 things that are unwholesome. So, what are the 10 things that are wholesome? The opposite of these: non killing, non stealing, chastity, non lying, non slandering, gentle speech, non frivolous talk, non covetousness, goodwill, and right view. And when you read the effects, I'm sure you will have problems with me or problems with Buddhism, because this is not a chart prepared by me. First of all, this is something I've taken from internet to save my time, but definitely from sources I am familiar with. And you will see why I say this when you look at effects of akusala karma. So when you are a person who has been killing, lives, it may, not definitely, it may make your lifespan short. So you'll have a short life, you'll have a diseasedness, meaning you'll end up having illnesses, you will have constant grief caused by separation from loved ones, and you have constant fear because you have killed somebody. Some of these are obvious, that you can have grief having killed somebody that is close to you. Sometimes people are numb after doing some grievous crime. They don't feel it. Sometimes when they are killed, then they feel what it was like to go through that experience when they committed that crime to somebody else. So constant fear, it is obvious that when you have done something, you feel like you are being watched by something, some force, or sometimes law enforcement. So these are obvious effects. But in Buddhism, we think about birth and rebirth, not reincarnation, which is like the same person, same body kind of understanding, which may be a little bit closer to Hinduistic approach. So we try to use rebirth, but you are neither the same person nor a different person being born, and you might have these effects of karma. So remember the word might. So this is important because we don't have to think of these karmic results as permanent, unchangeable things. Obviously, when you do good things, the effects will change. And stealing causes poverty. You will be born poor. Well, don't say that the poor people are those people who have stolen things, but it is also mental poverty. Mentally, you may be in a wealthy family, but thinking poorly, so you will not really enjoy your life as a person who was born in a luxurious, good, aristocratic, or some wealthy family. So you'll feel unfulfilled. Your desires will be unfulfilled in a way, like you want things, but you can't have them. Dependent livelihood, you'll always have to depend. But there are other circumstances that lead to these kind of situations. And you will have, because of sexual misconduct, it says in some sources, sometimes commentaries, Buddhist commentaries, these commentaries mean not the original scripture, but monks later provided commentary to the original Buddhist scripture. And in those, you find things like, you see, I wanted to erase, C from here, but I kept it because it would spark discussion, and I like things that generate discussion, so that's worth it. But anyway, A is talking about having many enemies because of sexual misconduct, getting undesirable wives, and birth as a woman or women, or being born as a eunuch. Uh, so I will come back to this because I just want us to continue, and then I allow you to think about different things. Don't get distracted into thinking too much. Let's stay focused on what we are being presented, what we find here, and then come back to discussion later. So, when you have light, you are being tormented by abusive speech mentally, being subjected to vilification, incredibility, stinking mouth. This is, my parents used to tell me, don't lie, your mouth will stink. So, this is a thing we learned from, I think these are common to some cultures. So slandering, it is dissolution of friendship without sufficient cause. This happens as a result of slander and harsh speech, being detested by others, tough, absolutely blameless, a harsh voice, and also frivolous talk. This leads to defective bodily organs, um, uncredible, sort of like unacceptable speech. Sorry about some wrong words being used here. Covetousness, which is actually part of being extremely greedy and attached. So this leads to non-fulfillment of your wishes, a strong desire of what you can't have. So that could happen as a result of being extremely greedy. Ill will, this would make you look ugly when you have anger, for example. You will have disease caused by anger. You will have um, detestable nature. You will have, when you have false view, you'll have lack of wisdom, base attachment. Some of these are just lists. Dull wit, chronic disease, blameworthy ideas. So when you look at these, you will see that some of these are kind of warnings. You will have disease. Disease kind of seems to be common around all these, suggesting that when you do this, you will have disease. One common way to arouse kind of alertness, maybe fear in common beings is by telling them, like, you won't have a healthy life if you did this. So you can kind of have some common sense or common understanding about these things before you commit any of the unwholesome deeds. So I have quoted an article about this thing that you saw, birth as a woman or as a eunuch. Why I have not removed this is that in Buddhist literature, there are places where uh, references. Somebody in Western culture will find misogynistic, and I have found an article that talks about this. But I want you to not feel negative about Buddhism as a whole. These are like somewhat common to the culture at that time. And people doubt whether the Buddha actually spoke about these things. Buddha is supposed to know what people think in the future, and he may have not spoken these things. So some people later added these to spark fear, arouse fear among people, that and also have a wrong view that women birth is lower than a man birth. But I have seen many men in man birth suffer, and many women who are in women birth enjoy their life. So these are like particular to certain cultures, certain times. So let's not get entangled in these things. All right, let's move on. This is almost like invisible. I'll have to like just briefly show this. Um, I have this chart, 10 wholesome deeds and 10 unwholesome deeds. And you see, I'll only read the first two. This is like giving you a contrast. Let's read the first one. Abstain from killing of living creatures of all sorts. Abstain from being wicked with bloody hands, not engaged in killing living creatures in whatever method, being compassionate towards living beings of all sorts. Um, so this is abstainment, and what is unwholesome is killing living beings, being wicked with bloody hands, engaged in killing living creatures, hunting, or any uncompassionate action towards animals. So this is the unwholesome aspect of it. And the second one, um, abstain from stealing possessions belonging to others, whether in village or in forest, not given to him with deceived mind status. So you do it with deceived mind status. So this is particularly taken from this sutra, Salayaka Sutra, taught by the Buddha. And the unwholesome aspect of it is stealing possessions belonging to others, whether in village or in forest, not given to him with deceived mind status. So you can say the forest part is added here. This is particularly spoken to monks who were forest dwellers. The audience was forest dwelling monks, and the Buddha is telling even in forest there could be people passing by, and they leave stuff and they go doing their businesses. And even if you see things that are not yours, abandoned, still if it is not yours, unless you make sure that you can take it, that it won't belong to somebody else, you don't take it. And especially later I come to monastic Vinaya on this, but let's move on without having kind of details in here. How do I move on? Right. Hello. All right. So I want you to not get confused about 10 meritorious actions. These are like dasa punya karma or punya kriya. This is also another list found in Buddhist literature. Punya is something that makes you happy. Being generous makes you happy. Being virtuous make you happy. Meditating make you happy. Reverence make you happy. Service, in being in service of others, make you happy. And transferring merits make you happy. Rejoicing in others' good things make you happy. Hearing the teachings that make you happy. And teaching Dhamma make you happy. And straightening your own view make you happy. And there are effects of it again. These effects, I'll go through the list. You'll have wealth by giving. In births to come, you will be a wealthy person. So this is hard to understand for people. But if you read the birth stories, there are wealthy men who are born during the Buddha's time. To become wealthy, they go back to, having done meditation, mental cultivation, they trace their past lives to find out that they became wealthy because of giving in their past lives. So that also, when you have virtues, you are born in noble families, in states of happiness. And when you have done meditation, you are born in form and formless realms. These are places that exist not on earth, but in mental realms, and like other dimensions. And when you have reverence, you get noble parentage. When you have done service, you get large retinue, large following. When you have done merits transferring to others, um, you get to give in abundance in future birth, meaning you are able to give more because you have more productive of merit whenever one is born. That is um, rejoicing in others' karma. So you also produce merits and you become someone who do good things continuously. Wherever you are born, you are able to do good things. So hearing the Dhamma, you get wisdom. Teaching Dhamma, you get wisdom. And having straight view, uncorrupted view, give you confidence. All right. So after that, I'm going to this article by Peter Harvey. This is downloadable from this particular journal. He has this article on an analysis of factors related to the kusala, akusala quality of actions in the Pali tradition. So he goes in depth, goes into details, and he analyzed these trends, kusala trends, akusala trends in detail. So he says, scattered through the texts of Pali Canon and supplemented by some commentarial passages, are a series of discussions of such matters as the nature of action. Action is karma, praiseworthy and reprehensible actions, criteria for determining an action as praiseworthy or reprehensible, and reflections on how the intention and knowledge of an agent should affect moral. Let me move the status bar. Okay. Intention and knowledge of an agent should affect the moral assessment of an action. So this is talking about several things: good action, bad action in simple terms, and how your intention affect it, and how you are the agent who is doing these things, and how it determines your moral assessment, like how you make your own assessment whether to do it or not. And he's taking an example from Sammaditthi Sutta, which is found in middle length discourses of the Buddha. Please look at the highlighted parts. He's looking at the roots of what is wholesome. In that way, when you know the root, you find, you find whether it is worthy of performing or whether it is unworthy of performing, and that way you come to the right view, the correct understanding on your own before you commit it. And when you know what is unwholesome, and it goes to the list, this is very brief part of the sutra, but it goes to that list we found out earlier, the list of killing living beings as unwholesome, taking what is not given as unwholesome, is also part of the 5 precepts that a layman is supposed to keep, not a monk, but monks have more than 5 precepts to keep. So the roots are basically greed, hatred, and delusion. Because of greed, you do something unwholesome. Because of hatred, you do something unwholesome. Because of delusion, you do something unwholesome. So this is basically uh, the roots for any unwholesome action that an individual may perform. And so what could be the wholesome roots? Wholesome roots include non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. Delusion here is being deluded mentally, being egoistic, taking that things that are not permanent as permanent, taking oneself as a being who is going to live forever, taking oneself wrongly in some cases as a person who will not have a next birth. So these are like supplemented in Buddhist understanding that one individual will be born again and again, as I said earlier. So with that understanding, there is this urge in an individual to perform something wholesome, expecting that you will have a better birth, and abstain from doing things that are unwholesome, knowing that you are destined to hell if you commit things that are unwholesome. Let's move on. Look at the highlighted part here. So this is from Gradual Sayings, Anguttara Nikaya of the Buddha. Whatever monks is greed, that is also an unwholesome thing. So you have Pali here, Yampi Bhikkave Lobo Tadapi Akusalam, like Tampi Akusalam. So the highlighted part is I am strong. I have the advantage of strength. That is also an unwholesome thing. So read the whole thing here before you make a conclusion here. Whatever the greedy, okay, I don't see some words here. Whatever the greedy one performs by body, speech or mind, overpowered by greed, his thoughts controlled by it, doing to another by falsely causing him pain through punishment, imprisonment, loss of wealth, abuse, banishment. You do that thinking that you are stronger. You have this advantage of strength. This is like a false understanding about yourself and not respecting other beings. This is also a thing performed by greedy nature of someone's mind. This is discussed in, taught in gradual discourses of the Buddha. And now this is about, did I miss? Okay. Behavior. The same is then said of behavior based upon hatred and delusion. The passage continues, such a person, overpowered by evil, unwholesome states, born of greed, being of uncontrolled mind, in this very life lives in pain, with distress, unrest, and fever. Dukkhang, savighatang, saupayasang, saparilahang. So this is original Pali as taught by the Buddha, taught in that same gradual discourses, where it talks about the kind of behavior one will have having done things based on hatred and delusion. But nowadays we find people who commit crimes and not regret it at all, and we really don't know how deluded they are, how much wrong view they have in their mind. Sometimes they do this because religion teach them to do so. Causal consequences. See the causal consequences of these actions to the agent in this life, that is you, showing this as a causal consequence. When you have unwholesome roots, unwholesome actions that bring pain to others and harm and pain in this and later lives to the agent, to the doer, to you, because you have done things that are harmful to others. As a result, it is taught that you will have harmful consequences. I think you are bored of me hearing that again and again, that bad things lead to bad consequences. But basically the thread is as such in Peter Harvey's article. He wants you to see the consequences, the causes and effects, which is also a common teaching in Buddhist teachings that you go find the root of all these things and you catch it from the roots and you try to remove it, ultimately awakening into Nibbana. Think of your mind as a lotus, and the lotus has petals. These petals have somewhat coarse nature in outer layers, but when it opens with the sunlight, it has delicate, beautiful layers, and it has fragrance and very soft petals inside. Your mind has the same nature. Instead of regretting things that you have done, instead of worrying about future, you stay present, aware of what is happening now. You use the wisdom to awaken yourself, awaken your mind. Excuse me. Now, that's why I present you this case, which came to news. This is about this lady, Lisa Montgomery. She committed this crime. She killed a 3-year-old Stinnett in Skidmore, Missouri, after befriending the pregnant woman online over a shared love of dogs. After driving to her house, Montgomery overpowered the pregnant woman, strangled her with a piece of rope, and cut the baby out of her womb. So police found Montgomery cradling a newborn girl she claimed to have given birth to the day before. After her story fell apart, she confessed to the killing. She was found guilty of the crime in 2007. The next day, she was sentenced to death. Right? This is this is how uh, humans can do crimes. And then BBC also reports that as a child, she was routinely sexually and physically abused by her father and trafficked by her mother. Family members said her treatment was so violent that it amounted to torture, her lawyers say. Her defense team believed that at the time of her crime, she was psychotic and out of touch with reality. That option is supported by 41 current and former lawyers as well as human rights groups like the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. But her victims' family and friends say the murder committed by Montgomery was so horrific that she deserved to be put to death regardless of her mental health. Um, I'll let you think about this and bring this to the discussion later, and let's move on. So, the nature of relative effect of attachment. Sometimes people also get attached to subtle meditative states. And having been attached, because that is, sometimes you also think that that meditative state that you attain to is the highest that anyone could achieve in meditation, and you haven't heard about any any better state that you can achieve better than the previous experience you had. And having been deluded that way, sometimes upon death, that person will be born in a realm that is prepared, that came as a consequence of that attainment and that illusion. This is why Buddhism, when the Buddha was born, and when Prince Siddhartha was born and became the Buddha. When uh, he taught about people getting trapped into meditative states, not knowing anything higher. So he taught that you can also let go of these states and be finally free from any birth anywhere in the world. Not just this world, any other existence in the universe, in the whole planetary system, whole galaxies or nebulas or anywhere else. You will stop being attached to any of these places, whether it is good or bad, whether it had hundreds or millions of years of existence. You make yourself be free And that way you don't fall down to purgatory realms where you will suffer and will have countless births as a result. So in the wisdom that is required for a human being, you are supposed to know that you will have consequences of good actions and bad actions. And as a result, sometimes you will have a gift of living millions of years in heaven. Having consumed your merits, then you might fall back to a lower realm because of something that you did, and it causes conditions, and you are born there. And having been born in a lower realm, and you might end up being a victim of suffering for millions of eons, sometimes in that million, not years, just eons, an uncountable number of millions of years in that place, by clinging to that state that you were born to, no matter how happy you were in your previous birth. So this subject area, the Buddha says, is somewhat incomprehensible to ordinary beings unless someone like a Buddha would explain it to them. Even then, the Buddha said, what I have taught to you is very little. What I have not taught is really huge amount of knowledge that he didn't teach, because already what he taught was enough for beings to attain a nibbana and come to full realization of it and be free from suffering. All right, we have 15 more minutes before it is 1 hour. Let's go on. We can thus extend the causal sequence given above to when you have unwise attention to your behavior, you go to unwholesome roots, unwholesome actions generated, and it bring pain to others, being pain to oneself and others, and as a result, harm and pain in this and later lives to the doer. Now, wrong view result wrong thoughts. Why is the moral tone of an action seen to cause certain karmic results? It is said that wrong view leads on to wrong resolve, thoughts, sankappa, and this to wrong speech. Because of thoughts, it leads to speech and thus wrong action. While right view has the opposite effect. Right view have right thoughts, and having right thoughts uh, will result in right speech, and thus it leads to right action also committed or done by an individual. This is referring to the gradual discourses of the Buddha, Anguttara Nikaya. Now, the subject of karma is taught in a lecture. If has not been taught, I saw the title, but I don't know when you will learn it. In Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha said, it is volition, chetana, monks that I call karma. Having willed, chetitva, one performs an action, kammang karoti, by body, by speech, by mind. The ripening vipaka of action is in this life, in the next life, or subsequent lives. So this is a famous, very well known piece of Buddha's teaching. You first think about something and you commit the action, and you will have consequences of it. Chetanaham bhikkhave kammang vadami chetayitva kammang karoti kayena vachaya manasa. I remember learning this from our Buddhism teacher in grade 10 in our school in Sri Lanka. We had the lesson on karma. So that day, and he asked us to go, bike to the temple, the local temple, and ask the monk if there is anything taught about karma by the Buddha. So the monk taught us that, just this. And then we went back to the school and told that to the teacher. He was quite happy. So this was like an experiment he did, that kind of engaging with the monk and also learning it directly from him and giving us a memory about Buddhist teachings. I said we will come to monastic code of discipline. Monastics are Buddhist monks. If a monk intentionally, sanchicha, intentionally deprive a living being of life, there is an offense of expiation, meaning you are expelled from a monastic order if you have killed any being. This is also a subject that I think you can pin down to talking about abortion. Once this friend of mine asked, this was like in my formative years as a monk, she's Russian, she asked me if she could abort her baby, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't say yes to it because saying killing a little fetus, not knowing where the life stands of that being, uh, would make me lose my status as a monk. But in social status, social conditions, other circumstances lead people to make these decisions, and it is again a gray area where you can't really know what is right or what is wrong. So governments have strict rules on these in some countries, but in some countries you have loose rules on this. So intentionally means a transgression committed knowingly, janato, consciously, sanjanato, deliberately, checha. If you know how to read Pali, that's how you read that, checha. These are like further emphasizing the action a monk, particularly a monk, commit. Janato, you do it knowingly, you do it consciously, you do it deliberately to kill the being. So it is then said that there is an offense of expiation, that you are expelled from the monastic order, that you think that you killed a living being, that it was living when you killed it, and you have taken its life. So then you are no longer considered a monk. You lose your seniority, you lose your monastic status, and you will have to, you can practice it still, and you can become an awakened person, you can become an arahant, but you should not be considered a monk. You are not invited to monastic formal activities. Well, this is a funny title, skincare, but again about wholesome actions leading to wholesome things. In Lakkana Sutta is talking about Buddha's 32 great characteristics that make someone a Mahapurisa, a great being. It is said that the past karmic course of the Bodhisattva is someone who is aspiring to become the Buddha, having smooth skin to which dust does not stick. In his skin, dust does not stick. This being an indication of his great wisdom was that he used to inquire of renunciants and Brahmins. He used to ask questions. And what questions did he ask? What is it that is wholesome? What is kusala? Just the thing that you're learning today. What is it that is unwholesome? What is with savajjam? What is wrong? What is considered wrong? What is not wrong? What course is to be followed? Sevitabba. What is not to be followed? What if I do it will be to my lasting harm, ahitaya, and pain, dukkhaya, And what to my lasting benefit and happiness? What brings happiness to me? Because he asked questions of this type, he became wiser, and it made his skin a good skin. So you see, all these commercial products of skincare are useless in that respect. All you have to do is come to monks and ask questions. So let's see who will really care for their skin today at the end of this lecture. Anyway, so we have few more slides to go before I finish. In Kalama Sutta, this is a famous teaching the Buddha gave about free thinking. He says, it has a different name called Kesaputta Sutta. When you know for yourselves these states, these dhammas are unwholesome, akusala, and with fault that they have savajja, they are criticized by the wise, vinyu garahita. These states, when undertaken and practiced, conduce to harm, ahitaya, and pain, dukkhaya. So you yourself make that judgment. So the Kalamar Sutta is about free thinking. You don't wait some higher being to tell you that you did it wrong. You know it, and that is because those people in the town in I think it is Kesaputta town. They had many teachers coming, and they were telling that what we teach is right, what others teach is wrong. Idameva satchang mogamanyam. And when they had enough of that, many teachers telling what they teach is right, and the Buddha visited them, at which point they said, all these teachers are teaching that they are right and others are wrong. How do we practice? And the Buddha says, you are the agent. You know when it is right, you know when it's wrong, and you then abstain from doing it. So that's basically the response the Buddha gave, in addition to giving other teachings. Buddha also advises his son Rahula, saying, this is Ambalattika Rahulova, the sutta found in middle length discourses, Majjhima Nikaya. Now his son became a novice monk, and the Buddha teach him to reflect before an action is committed, in body, speech, or mind. He says, would this action that I wish to do with the body lead to my own affliction, atta vyabadhaya, or to the affliction of others, or to the affliction of both? Is it an unwholesome bodily action with painful consequences, dukkhudraya, with painful ripening, dukkha vipaka? Basically repeating the same thing that we have been reading again and again. Again, in simple terms, in Kukkuravatika Sutta, the Buddha is teaching that dark action lead to dark ripening. So the focus is on not afflicting oneself, as here the Buddha addresses an ascetic who models his behavior on that of a dog. He lived like a dog. And then he asked the Buddha what he thought that this will bring him, because he lived all his life like a dog, and he wanted to know whether he will have a happy birth in the future. And the Buddha said, well, Buddha refused to answer in the first place, but when he was asked 3 times, he said, unfortunately, when you have lived like that, you will be born as a dog. So this is interesting. Bring this to the discussion. And then loving kindness is wholesome. He says, monks, do not be afraid of punya, meaning doing good things, meritorious things. This, monks, is a designation for happiness. For what is pleasant, charming, dear, and delightful, that is to say punyas. I myself know that the ripening of punyas done for a long time are experienced for a long time as pleasant, charming, dear, and delightful. After developing a heart of loving kindness for 7 years, for 7 eons of evolution and devolution, meaning this whole universe come into existence, and with conditions, circumstances, it disappears. And in all these having only done loving kindness meditation for 7 years, for many years, I did not come back to this world, meaning he was only born in happier places that had many, many good millions of years of happiness that he enjoyed. So at last, this is the verse that I like you to memorize if you haven't done this before. This is all the Buddhas teach this. This is called Anusasana of all the Buddhas. As you can see in the last line in Pali, Etang Buddhana Sasanam, the teaching of all Buddhas. Let's read the English first and then try to memorize it. The non-doing of all evil, the performance of what is skillful, the cleansing of one's own mind, this is the Buddha's teaching. All right, and I will invite you all to try to chant it with me, and later you can memorize this. Sabba papassa akaranang kusalassa upasampada sacitta pariyodapanang etang buddhana sasanang. I'm sure you can find this online. I don't have the link here, but please do ask if you like. Once again, but you have it here. Sabba papassa akaranang kusalassa upasampada sacitta pariyodapanang etang buddhana sasanang. Sabba papassa akaranang kusalassupa sampada sacitta pariyodapanang etang buddhana sasanam. Excellent. With that, we will move on to questions. All right, so when we started, we had 38 people. As I finished, all 38 are still here. So it looks like this was not that boring. If it was that boring, you would have left. But feel free to raise your hand and ask questions while I go through these comments. Yes, will you be able to share this copy of these slides? Absolutely. Let me do it right now. Please download it from the chat box. I will send you the PowerPoint and also the PDF, whichever format you like. I've just sent it. And when I see, so this is Melanie asking, when I see unchastity, the effects to the right say birth as woman or as a eunuch, does that mean that being born as a woman is a punishment? Well, I think I briefly responded to that. And I don't think that way. And nobody should think that way in their right mind. And as I said, this I need to find if the Buddha actually said that. I believe that this may have been taught by later traditions, like adding things, somebody who didn't have really clear understanding would have said such a thing, or for cultural reasons that men at that time had superior status uh, compared to those of women. For example, even now, I remember going to the Golden Rock Pagoda in Myanmar when I was walking into the site. Even nuns were not allowed to enter the shrine, saying women are impure to enter to that sacred site. And they have a tradition of sticking gold plates, little stickers that you can purchase, and you stick it. So these nuns and women give these to monks, and monks go and glue them on their behalf. So women stay within the boundary, and I felt really uncomfortable knowing that. And this also happens sometimes in Sri Lankan sacred sites. Some places are not allowed, and for women. These are cultural things, but I think the world has now a better understanding about equality. But I don't want to believe that the Buddha ever said such a thing without giving uh, a view to us to think that women are lower than men. But the Buddha himself admitted nuns to the order and said they are also able to become awakened just as men, but for their protection, for their security, because there were these gang rapings happen. It was not secure for nuns to live in the forest alone because men would find them, and there are so many incidents like that reported in the Buddhist scripture, in the discourses. So, because of these reasons, the Buddha hesitated to admit them to the nuns' order. And there is a book by Bhikkhu Analayo that I had the privilege of translating into Sinhalese, though. But the book is written in English. This is about Bhikkhuni ordination, entering to nun's order. So if you Google this title, Bhikkhuni ordination by Analayo, from ancient India to present something, I forgot, present Sri Lanka, I think. Uh, you will be able to find it freely available. It's shared publicly in University of Hamburg's, I think, archives. Um, Thank you for the nice comments. Also, Corey says, "You so interesting, beautiful teaching. Thank you for kind words." And someone also says, I think it's I only see Vino. Let me make the screen bigger so I see it on full screen. Um, Roxanne says thank you. Amy says thank you. Thank you for kind words. And Al Ace, I am sure, sorry to butcher your name, is that Aislinn? It was very interesting. Thank you so much for teaching. My pleasure. You are so kind. Vinod says, Bante, my question is about the ill will. If ill will is unavoidable, is this still a unwholesome deed? I'm sure there are some moments that ill will seems like unavoidable. Um, but if Vinod can explain to me what you mean by unavoidable, I think that will help me and the audience to understand. I think even if it is unavoidable, that the consequences could be somewhat unproductive, I would say somewhat painful. Let me read that again. Uh, if ill will is unavoidable, that you have anger, that you can't avoid it, is this still an unwholesome deed? I think the short answer is it is. That it still becomes an unwholesome deed. Even if you can't avoid having that ill will in you, I don't think you can. There should be ways. I think this is referring to that woman, perhaps Lisa, who committed that crime. Although she was in a bad state of mind, as a consequence, there was social punishment, excuse me, and hate coming towards her. Um, this is unimaginable amount of crime she committed, and although she had support from multiple organizations and law firms, she could not be saved. She had this lethal injection, and she had the capital punishment. Um, all right, Susie is asking a great question. How do all these questions are great questions? How do we stop unwholesome thoughts from forming? And why is, this is this is part of our meditation, not like sitting meditation or walking meditation, I think that constant continuous meditation, that you are aware of what arises in your mind and what passes away in your mind. So you are alert when you see something unwholesome that has arisen. You abandon it with, for example, using a substitute like loving kindness, saying something kind to somebody, saying something gentle to somebody, trying to give some, sometimes I remember I went to a sale in a church. I think these are called ramage sales, and I actually didn't have any money. And I said, there was a Christian prayer I loved, and I said, I love this. And how much was this? And she said, it's $1. I said, I'm so sorry, I don't have a dollar. Uh, um, and I had actually bought so many things already that I thought were useful to children in Sri Lanka for shipping. So I didn't have a dollar. And she said, have it. And then she said, do something kind to somebody. This was very moving to me. I accepted it, and I still have that. It's a nice prayer for Saint Anthony. I remember visiting Saint Padua Church in Italy. I think this was in Padua, Italy. So it's a train, 1 hour train from Verona towards Venice, and you stop at Padua to visit this beautiful, beautiful um, church of a saint who's said to have psychic abilities and spoke the truth. His tongue is still preserved in there, so I was able to see it. So it's like, I'm sorry being distracted into a whole other story, but that knowing that history, I wanted to keep that prayer from the woman. So her saying that, do something kind to someone, it stays in my mind all the time. That you may not be able to uh, purchase it, but you can also do something kind to someone. You may have done mistakes in your life, but you both go back and ask for forgiveness, and that is something kind you can do. So always, there is opportunity and space for us to transform our actions. So we stop unwholesome thoughts from forming by doing something wholesome. Having, for example, you go to a homeless person and donate something. What is your immediate thought? Happiness. And that happy moment generates more happy thoughts that you are able to change somebody's life. Even now, you can test this like something good you did. The glow, the feel, joyful feeling that you feel, and that can lead to another happy feeling. So right there, you are having wholesome, joyful, kusala thoughts. Interesting, right? And or if you imagine you are a person who only do good to others for 5 years, and there you have made conditions in your mind only to have wholesome thoughts to arise in you. And if you haven't done 5 years of good, just like the Buddha advised us, do loving kindness meditation now, and you will see your mind turns to be beautiful, and you will see only beautiful things when you have done it very well for a long time. So that is how you make conditions for wholesome thoughts to arise, and it is impossible for unwholesome thoughts to arise when you have conditioned your mind to the wholesome. I hope that answers your question. If not, please come back and feel free to ask. Corey says, Bante, kindness is helping our community to keep strong after a lot of death here in my town to live wholesome acts. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I pray that all of you be safe there and stay healthy. And Bandula says, Bante, what is the difference between the 10 meritorious deeds and the 10 unwholesome deeds? I don't see a huge difference. I think the Kusala Kamma, 10 wholesome um, actions, this is specifically talking about things that you do bodily, and mentally, and verbally, and encouraging you to abstain from doing things, saying that there are these unwholesome 10 and there are these wholesome 10. These are like basic guidelines summarizing what a person could do. But when you come to 10 meritorious deeds, there are clear differences that including those good things you do, like being generous, practicing virtues, in that one thing, if you take second one of meritorious deeds, practicing virtues, you have all the 10 of wholesome deeds summarized in that one thing. So meritorious deeds, punya karma, is about doing things that make you happy. And the Buddha was teaching like ma punya bhai, don't fear the merits, do good. Sometimes people think that they go to the wrong understanding that doing punya karma, doing meritorious deeds, will send them to heaven, and that way they will have to stay in samsara for a long time. But the Buddha says, don't fear that. Even in heaven, you are able to achieve nirvana, achieve ending of suffering, but you might likely be deceived by heavenly pleasures. So be careful in there, trying to reach to a better heaven, because there are variants like all these ice cream flavors that you can choose from. And when you go to a better heaven, it is determined by the kind of wisdom you have developed as a human being. So meritorious deeds have a different line of things compared to the wholesome deeds. And I think I would say meritorious deed include in wholesome deeds, and wholesome deeds include in meritorious deeds. They go hand in hand in both ways, and altogether they make a person a better person, and they get the best out of you and lead you towards ending of suffering. I hope that helps. Did I miss? Robert's question is, do monks in modern day marry? No, we monks in our tradition, Theravada Buddhist tradition, if we want to marry, we are not able to do so by staying in monastic status as monks. We'll have to say goodbye to our robes and choose a life of an ordinary lay person and have a family life. So you have the option to do so, but you are not considered a monk at that point. But here in the West, there are ordained ministers or ordained lay people, which is different from a celibate person. They have a family, they raise children. And when it comes to Tibetan tradition, there are Tibetan gurus who would marry, but only once they will do the sexual intercourse or until they have an offspring, a child, to carry on their lineage, and they abstain from any sexual activity and have a full celibate life. But they live in a like a monastic environment. These are social changes that happened in Buddhist culture due to various circumstances. Sometimes these monks also would do farming and other agricultural things to feed their family, but they have a high regard because they go on retreat, seclusion retreat for 6, 7 years and come out with great fruitions, great results at the end of their meditation retreat, and no one is allowed to enter their cave at that time. They provide themselves with food and then they remain in silence for a long period of time. If you can do it, that's a huge commitment, and I wish you all the best. So sometimes people think that, uh, you know, just like anything, celibacy is a commitment, marriage is also a commitment. In all these, your 100% commitment will give you happiness and greater abundance of uh, happiness in your life. um, I'll have to stop 7:30 at 7:30 sharp because I have to lead another group in a discussion and in meditation. So being mindful about the time, let me see how much time we have. What's the time now? 7:19. We have about 10 more minutes. So did I miss any other question? Will you type the book that I mentioned in that? I did. I typed it there, and I also sent you the slides. Please download them, save the chat. So if not, please email Bante Siri, and Bante will email me, and I can send him anything that you missed. And this is Johan asking a great question. If you are raised in violence as a child, you live in fear, you don't develop mentally. How does one develop a right mind? I think there is opportunity for people to choose right living conditions. Sometimes people really don't know how to choose when you are raised in that kind of environment. So they need help. This is why people go through training, rehabilitation, and lots of other um, kind of guidance. When they have been through that, they are able to see somewhat better. Their lenses are wider and they see clearer. But it is unfortunate that anyone go through violence. But sometimes we have abusive parents. And if you are rereading the last chapter of your life, you are not going to really read the new chapters. So it's best, like the Buddha said, Atitan nanusochaya, do not regret the past. Nappa jappanti nagatam, do not worry about what is yet to come. Don't be anxious about it. You face it as they come, accept things. Pachuppanne yapenti, you survive by what comes to you now. What is present, you accept it, embrace it, wait things. When fear arises, you can control it. It's not in your control. You only wait until fear to disappear and you begin developing, focusing on things that are good for you. And tena vanno pasidati. By doing that, you become a beautiful person. That's what the Buddha said. Mm. All right. Any more questions? I guess that is it. The sutta name of the last gatha, it is found in Dhammapada. I can type it here. It doesn't. It might have a sutta name. I don't remember off of my head, although it's very popular and we learn it um, since our childhood. But I think if you go into Dhammapada, the words of the Buddha, which is like the handbook of Buddhist, you will be able to find it. And it's also available for free online. All right, if we don't have any more questions, we can end the session here.
Bante, there is a question, probably you didn't see it. It is from Hang about the rebirth. Did you miss? Can you find it? It's very.
Oh yeah, there, I see it. I'm sorry, Hank. Rebirth stops only if liberation is achieved by insight and the extinguishing of craving. So assume that it happens, then where would we go or become in this universe if we are not rebirth again? I'm just curious. So don't um, don't feel bad if I say this question is wrong. Okay, it's just to say, that sometimes even within discussions that are recorded in Buddhism, sometimes you have, conversations that monks had during the Buddha's time. Sometimes we can't grasp the end of it without having much details to know how to really phrase a question. Rebirth does stop, and it's like you asking, when the fire is blown away, where is the flame? And if you can find, it's just the conditions were there for the fire to exist, like oxygen. There is, if it is a candle, it has a wick, it has wax, and it was supported by oxygen, and the flame existed as long as those conditions existed. And when conditions disappear, there is no way the flame can be traced or found. That's why when monks or Buddha they have reached arahanthood, they are no longer existing in any form, anywhere, in any place. There are no stars in Nibbana. There is no one entering it. It's just this being that is conditioned is now dissolved. There is no more trace can be found about that being. I hope I answered your question. All right, so some people, all right. Any more questions? Interesting questions. Thank you, Drake. I see nice comments coming.
Yeah.
I appreciate them all. Perhaps we can stop it here because I have this other event happening right after.
Yes, Bante, and we're really thankful to Bante for coming and sharing your
Of
wisdom
course,
with
my
us
pleasure.
tonight. Yeah, and also not only us, actually, there were around 40 people tonight, but around 240 people in this course, and most of them are following the course offline.
Nice.
And yeah, so I hope this helps to all of us, and we really enjoyed this evening. And thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
and taking time. Thank
May
you.
good things happen to you and all of you. Buddha Saranai.
Definitely.
May the triple gem bless you.